gosh, I really, really feel like that is a spot where there's some type of cooking timer going on.
Don't know. Yeah. The audio's cut out.
Oh no, technical difficulty.
Oh dear.
Ah.
Oh, there you are.
Carrying on in the vein of the cultural podcast here.
Oh. This is the most beautiful start to everything.
Oh no. You're talking into the abyss, Michelle.
What? What?
I think
We
your mic's
couldn't hear you for a moment.
having a fit today.
So now here's the real question. As we're working this out over here, can chat actually hear us as this is going on?
That's a good question.
I mean, welcome to the Newbcast, where we pretend to be professionals.
Or do we?
We're working it out for sure.
I don't know what's going on. I think maybe it's just a new XLR. I'm going to have to look at our XLR mic. Anyway.
We can hear you now.
Yes.
Okay. We're good?
Knock on wood. I think
Gucci.
we're good.
Oh no!
I knew it. I said that I was going to knock on wood, and I didn't knock on wood, and here we are.
Oh goodness.
What a beautiful setup.
Which is crazy because this wasn't happening during sound check at all.
No, it was fine.
Absolutely.
It was absolutely
we
fine.
We were here for a full half an hour. All of the audio was perfect.
Yeah.
No questions.
This is why you do sound checks. This is why you don't do sound checks. You just go in. You just go and roll.
Exactly. All of this preparation was for naught.
For naught.
Yeah, right. Oh my gosh. Anyway, Diz, I think you started doing it, but I'm going to go ahead and say it again. Welcome to the Newbcast, a gaming podcast where we don't pretend to be professionals, or do we? Talking about gaming news, culture, and everything else. My name is Miss Michelle Dean, joined by Dizzy G, my co-host, and our special guest, Rambol. Welcome to the show.
Hey guys, how's it going?
Good. Well, better now.
Thank you for having
Everything seems to be working now. Oh my gosh.
Yeah. Situation normal.
Right.
It's all fine here.
Snafu.
It's okay. How are you?
I got that reference.
You got that reference.
Thank you. I was gonna say.
Which is appropriate considering. Rambol, welcome. Could you tell everyone just a little bit about what you do, who you are, why you're interesting, and such?
Well, I'll try. I'm not very good at that. I guess I'm a streamer, which maybe may come as a big shock to all of you, I'm sure. Yeah, I'm a one trick, if you will. I pretty much exclusively stream Star Wars: The Old Republic, and it's the most niche area of the most niche game. I pretty much exclusively do PvP. So there's a community of maybe on a good day about 50 of us. So yeah, yes, and I write guides and content for the game. Yeah, not many people interested in this, but I still have fun with it. So yeah, yeah, that's what I do.
Awesome, fantastic. Well, in that said, then welcome. Yeah, I don't know how many times I've hung out in Rambo's channel just talking about she's doing her killing of Jedi the way she does,
and the younglings, and the women and the children.
Oh wow. I'm guessing you don't like sand either.
Oh, it gets everywhere. It's really irritating. I'm never gonna live that one down.
So that said, besides Star Wars: The Old Republic, has there been anything else you've been playing lately, like games that you've been enjoying?
Not a huge whole lot, to be honest with you. I am sure I'm not alone in the world in having a vast library of unplayed Steam games. I've started playing Out of Boy, I did start playing that recently. I have not got very far, and I do dabble in a bit of Overwatch now and then. That's mainly what I've been up to.
Ah, okay. So you have been playing more Overwatch.
A little bit.
Okay.
No, not very much lately. I've been mainly following the pro scene, and I'm more of an observer of Overwatch than a player these days, at least.
Fair.
Yeah, it's interesting because I think we're finding more and more people in that spot.
Yeah.
And we'll discuss that a little bit later, it sounds like, in the podcast. But the fact is, a lot of people are in that situation, and there is a huge need for stuff, professionally made, like Overwatch League. So.
Yeah, very true. Yeah, Dizza, welcome.
Hi, I cannot promise that I will be awake this entire podcast. If I fall asleep, just send me a call, let me know, it will vibrate, and I will apologize profusely for the rest.
Now, why on earth would you be that tired, Dizza? What's going on? What have you been playing?
So lately I've been playing Octopath Traveler. The last couple of weeks, so the demo for Octopath Traveler, they gave you 3 hours of in-game time that you could do whatever, play through the first act of all of the 8 characters, which, by the way, in a casual playthrough, doing that in 3 hours is ridiculous. Tried it just casually, can't do it. And then I ended up optimizing each and every little bit of it to try to maximize their level and get all of their content and all of that material ready for the launch, and then proceeded to do a 24-hour stream of Octopath. That's the second time I've done this.
Quite a hop.
Wait, did Overwatch just come out?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's exactly what happened. Yep.
Yeah. And it's got at least 8 characters in it, right? Yeah, it must be the same game.
Yes, totally.
But yes, for the launch of Octopath, I did a 24-hour stream. The first 13 were all I needed to actually beat the game, and that was skipping all of the cutscenes and doing all of the fun stuff. And the cool part is at least all of the cutscenes are in the story, so you can go into the settings and actually take a look at all of those pieces. They keep a journal of it all, which is great. But there's some post-game content that I haven't touched yet. I tried to get through to the last of the content for all of the other 7 characters, got through all of that. There's some optional classes in the game, which are super cool. Just barely got those in before the 24-hour mark, and now it's the slow progression to get to know everything in the game and perfect it all, and then go into this post-content stuff, which I'm sure will wallop me quite a few times before it's all said and done. I'm excited, and the storyline matches this being this kind of epic grand scale result. All 8 characters have some sort of reference to this area at the end, and I'm not going to spoil it because it is brand new, but it ties everything together extremely well, and nice. I'm definitely looking forward to checking that out.
So on a scale of it being a Squeenix game, did it live up to the expectation of a Squeenix game? Was it just as good as other Squeenix games? Was there room to improve? What, you are the know-it-all on this. Your opinion truly matters on this. What's the word, Dizza?
So it depends on what you say is quality in a Squeenix game, right? There's a lot of story. There's a lot of decent story, and while there wasn't a lot of interplay between characters, after Final Fantasy XIII, where really we just spent the entire time talking about their personalities and how they connected for 40 hours, I was all right having something that was more plot-driven individually than that. There are some optional segments where the characters do interact with each other, but they're totally optional. And the storylines as they merge together is what creates interest in the plot. And I think that they did a really good job on that.
Okay.
There were some pretty scathing reviews, so I was really scared on Thursday when I started reading through all of these after the NDA, thinking, what am I getting myself into? I've hyped up all of this interest in the game. And plot's solid. Plot's definitely solid. The mechanics are very punishing. It feels more like a Persona game in that regard. Mm-hmm. Like if you make one wrong action, you can potentially ruin your entire fight and just wipe your team. Where if you had taken a different action, you would have had no problems. So thinking strategically, it was a beautiful little puzzle for the combat system. Definitely a fan of that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think it ticks all of the boxes for what I want in kind of a classic Japanese RPG experience. So in that regard, definitely props. I haven't given Square Enix a lot of credit, especially because the trailers for that game, I think, didn't no credit.
Yeah, no, it really didn't. And I feel like during the E3 show that we did when we kicked this thing off again, we talked a little bit about that, right? Where you actually, like, we saw 2 trailers for it, and it was nothing to cry home about or go home with or take home or whatever the phrase is, right? Look, it was nothing to go with. It wasn't that great. It was just like, well, is this worth our time? Is this worth a look, or is it just is it filler space? Are they just trying to get a title out so they've said they've done something?
So, as someone who knows absolutely nothing about the game, is it set in a new? Is it a new IP, or is it using?
It is completely new IP.
Okay.
Yes, sorry. Completely new IP. The area. So you start off in a centralized area. There was a recent war that took place, and you learn a little bit more about that. But everybody's kind of living their own lives and has their own experience in that world. Experience-wise, I'm trying to think how I would relate it. It feels a lot like Saga Frontier.
Okay.
As a matter of the gameplay. I wish it was a little bit more customized depending on like which character you chose. That was one thing I think Saga Frontier just absolutely nailed, and I guess because it is its own IP, they shouldn't really take that exact formula from somewhere else. But it's a bit of that. It feels a bit of Final Fantasy Tactics, a bit of classic RPG. Like it's a good amalgamation of all of the previous IP that Square has done in RPGs.
Is it sort of historical or futuristic? What sort of setting?
Historical.
Are we talking about? Okay, cool.
Historical, definitely like 15th century now. Like 16th, 17th.
Awesome. So chivalrous.
Yes. And our audio. Sorry? That's the swordplay. So you get 6 different types of weapons.
Oh, okay.
Over the course of the game. Not to mention, you also have elements on top of those. So magic is a giant part of the game, and all of these different weaknesses are weaknesses in the game. So it doesn't really matter if it's a weapon weakness or a magic weakness. What they do as part of the strategy is they have a certain number of hits that you use with that weakness before you stun an opponent, and that stunned opponent takes additional damage. Think about it like a break in Final Fantasy 13, where you want to get to that break point as soon as possible. On the other side of things, your opponent is going to be doing a number of activities where you're going to try to push to the edge of getting that break without dying yourself in the process. So there's a lot of strategic element to that.
As someone who has not played very much Final Fantasy, I feel a bit of my depth.
Yeah. It's definitely worth exploring. I don't feel guilty getting it as a brand new title at $60, which happens very seldom for me.
Can I say that's glowing praise these days?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And I haven't heard anything about planned additional content for it, which I think everything is standalone. On one side of things, I really want more material because I think there's so much more that they could do with it. If they do, they can take my money, but I hope they develop it afterwards, which it sounds like they have at this point. So, like, even on that side of thing, even on the production of the game sense, I feel really good about it.
Is there
definitely
any
my favorite
online
RPG this
multiplayer
year.
component to it?
No, not at all.
All single player?
Single player. Yep.
A
Very
rarity these days.
Actually, yeah. They were talking a little bit about that with Fallout 76, with the online-only content. Is this the way that Bethesda is going to run around starting to do things?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I think we got the audio back.
Yeah, we did.
Woo!
I think I might have figured out what the problem was too. No, the other thing I was going to mention is, since you brought it up, is as soon as you said that the art would resemble like a Final Fantasy Tactic, I realized that it really does. Like if you look at the art style of Octopath, and then you go back and look at like Final Fantasy Tactics, it's a very, very similar art style. So I think anyone that might be a fan of that particular game and franchise might appreciate the callback to that particular game.
Yeah, it makes sense too, because the design of the game is this 2D, 3D landscape that you're exploring. And the 3D landscape and the effects, the visual effects that they put on it, some people will criticize as being a little too extreme. I think that they had to do something to make it shine in today's modern day, because the standard 2D, 3D, like we saw in Final Fantasy Tactics, doesn't really hold up the same way.
Sure.
But that being said, it immediately sparks those memories from combats and things from Final Fantasy Tactics as you're going and exploring the world.
Now, I have to ask, is it warm there?
It's a little warm.
Okay. Look, that was just the other thing that was completely pressing. I had to know.
Mopping your brow casually.
Right. Well, great. And did you actually finish it? I know we had to leave on Saturday or last night when you were wrapping up, and I didn't get to see whether or not you finished it or not.
Yeah, the game was actually completed at about 1 p.m. my time, so 13 hours into the stream.
Okay.
And it depends on what you call a game completion, right? So I completed the first end of chapter 4, which happened to be my main character's story. And they gave us end credits and everything at that point, but there's clearly a lot of additional content to be completed. So if you want to count it as completing all 8 characters, that happened about 6 hours later. It really did take some time on some of those characters because you don't get shared experience with everyone. So any of the characters that you really didn't want to play most of the time were like, level 9, here you go. I want you to complete this game with a level 9 character. And then you end up essentially playing with 3 units instead of 4 by the end, because you just kind of push yourself through it. Unless you wanted to grind up the levels with those characters, but that's not really worth the time.
Gotcha.
But yeah, so that was about 18 hours, and that was rushing through it. I think realistically, if I were catching all of the plot and taking a casual experience on it, it would be 25 to 30 hours for the game, for the main content.
Okay.
And then with the additional content, you could easily go into like the 45, 50 hour mark, depending on how much you want to explore.
Okay, so that's a fair one.
It's also really easy to conflate, like, how do you quantify value for a game, right? A lot of people say, well, you know, if there aren't enough hours, it's not worth $60. But ultimately, I mean, to me anyway, it's about the quality of the gameplay and the story. And if it's good enough, then I don't see the point in drawing a game out needlessly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No,
well, it's like going to a restaurant and having a fine meal. Like, you can have a fine meal that is small.
Sure.
And spend a lot of money on it and still feel like you got good value out of it. And that's good for some people, and other people will want, you know, most bang for the buck, give me, you know, most number of calories for fewest number of cents. There's a calculator for that for Taco Bell. I'm not sure if you've seen it before, but there's a literal calculator for how inexpensive per calorie your food is at Taco Bell.
Wow.
Not sponsored.
I did not realize this was a thing. Wow. The things you learn on a gaming podcast. Life lessons. Life lessons.
It's on my bucket list. Taco Bell.
Oh, jeez. Why?
Might be the last thing I do. I don't know. It depends how much I eat.
It could very well be. But I think you're bringing up an interesting point about quantifying the cost and value of a game, right? Because there are certainly some games that are many hours long, but it's absolute garbage, and you still end up paying $60 for it. And it's just like, I don't think that was worth the money. Whereas you can have a short.
Or there are ongoing costs.
Oh yeah.
Subscription fees or microtransactions and things.
Like an MMO. I wouldn't know anything about this.
Yeah. I haven't played WoW in the last 2 or 3 months, and I'm pretty sure my subscription is still running. Should check in on that.
Wait. Rewind. Hold up. When did you start playing that again?
During the alpha of the new expansion. They were like, oh, by the way, you should check this out. And I did check it out for like 4 or 5 hours, and that was about all of it. That's
about the amount of time I put into the beta, but I didn't resub to do that. So really, that is interesting that you went back to Legion and played more of that. That's telling, Dizza.
Yeah. I mean, I wanted to give it a shot.
Yeah,
I really did. I tried. The nostalgia is definitely there. Although, apparently, I can hit my nostalgia needs by other games. And Octopath was definitely that.
Very cool. Good recovery. Good recovery.
Yeah.
And
Bring it back. Bring it back.
But yeah, no, you're completely right, you know. And then there's other games where they're great games that aren't full of $60 games, but you can still. I think ultimately what I'm trying to get to is the point I'm trying to say is if you have a lot of fun playing the game you're playing, then it is worth the amount of money that you likely paid for it, right?
Yeah. It's my biggest frustration about the direction that games development seems to be going, where how do we stretch out content for as long as possible and keep reeling people in rather than just, you know, and I guess a game like God of War, even though I haven't really gotten very far into it, goes to show that, you know, you can still make a great standalone story, and, you know, people want to play it. You don't have to go the route that EA seems to be taking and every other publisher seems to be taking.
Right.
Just, you know, how much can we wring out of people? It does feel like that.
Yeah.
There's been times where I've been convinced that big publishers turn you upside down and shake you to see how much money falls out of your pockets.
Yeah.
Like, I've been convinced of that some time now.
I'm pretty sure it explains the entire experience in other sorts of media, like anime. Like, look at Naruto for a moment. How many things were expanded on, and like how many episodes of that series are there? And when you boil down the plot, how much of it was really that necessary to tell the sort of story that you have? It makes sense. And it's also one of the most profitable animes out there. Of course, somebody's going to be like, hey, why don't we do this thing over here?
Filler is always important. Look at One Piece, and we'll just leave it at that.
As a bit of a closet weeb, I still have flashbacks of Naruto flashbacks. So, yeah.
See,
oh yeah, you definitely have to have your flashback episode at least once a story arc.
Yeah.
I mean, at this point, it's a standard. How else is anybody going to know except watching the show that they've been enjoying watching anyways?
I've been avoiding watching Boruto because I'm worried that it's going to be that I'm still going to be inundated with flashbacks of you know, Sasuke being traumatized by Itachi. I'm sure that's going to happen. Even though Boruto wasn't alive for that, I'm sure somehow they'll work that in.
Oh, for sure.
I'm the horrible anime person that didn't watch Naruto or anything, so
you just stay free. Stay free.
You can be very happy for that. I watched hundreds of episodes of Bleach, and afterwards, I did not feel any wiser for the experience.
See, that's an interesting thought that came up too. So, like, when you have a short series and there's still a recap episode, like, it's an anime trope, is what that is. It's a trope. It's
so necessary because everybody else has one that you must have one too.
So that I forget the name of it, but we talked about it a few weeks ago during the E3 episode. As he's talking to the magical person off screen. No, I forget what the name of that anime fighting game, the mashup game.
Oh goodness!
I know what you mean. Off the top of my head, yeah, I know what you mean, but the name is.
Why am I looking? I'm like, not Marvel versus Capcom, but Marvel versus Capcom. Let's be fair.
But weebs.
But weebs.
Yeah. So, no, does it mean that there's a special game mode that's actually a flashback to...
Oh my gosh.
Could you imagine that, if there's a flashback mode?
Oh, no. That'd be awful.
Let's go back to that combat that we had in Stage 1, Episode 1, and recall how we absolutely trounced this one character. Or they absolutely trounced us, and go back to it. See exactly how we messed up every single time.
Jump Force.
That almost. Oh.
That's it. Jump Force. Yeah. Imagine if Jump Force had a.
That's it.
Yeah.
That's right, because it's from Shonen Jump.
Yep.
Should have known.
Yep.
It's like with every Dragon Ball game that they make, they always have a story mode, and it's always a recap of the series or some stretch of the series, and they do it. I don't know how many times in Budokai did they revisit like the Frieza saga and just like play it all out.
Look, that's how they fill the episodes. That's how they do it. That's how they fill the episodes. Which, I'm trying to think, are there? We don't have any games that do that, though, do we? There are no games that have like that. Last time on Octopath, blah 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 blah.
I guess
blah, blah, blah.
maybe with episodic games. Like what's coming to mind?
Oh, like the Telltale games?
Yeah, kind of. They do that, don't they?
Do they?
I seem to remember playing Life is Strange, and they did like a recap of a previous episode when you started playing a new one.
I suppose it's possible. I'm that horrible person that has the unpopular opinion that Telltale games aren't that great. They're great stories. They're not great games. Because all they are QuickTime events. And if
Never played any.
Yeah.
Right. They just don't really appeal to me.
Yeah.
I think it appeals to the same sort of people who enjoy choose your own adventure books.
Mm-hmm.
And there was a time in my life where I really, really enjoyed those. I thought they were the coolest, and I definitely did not reverse engineer how to get to the end ever on any of those because I was having such a difficult time.
No.
But you can't do that on Telltale series, so that's even one fewer reason to enjoy them.
Yeah, see, I never cared for them. So, I guess the only other question is, has there been anything else you've been playing then, or?
Literally, all of my time for the past few weeks has gone into that.
Okay.
I have still yet to figure out if anybody beat the main course of the game before I did. I imagine they did, and I imagine they did on Twitch as well. But that was the goal. So I'm gonna go and do some research on that. But no, all of that time was literally spent just trying to optimize everything for that demo the last 2 weeks.
So you will go down in history as being one of the few people that did indeed beat the game in the first 24 hours. So plant that flag somewhere important.
Yes.
Nice, gonna go for that speedrun world record.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Right. Get your best time. Well, I guess my variety has been more than a single game, so I guess I've got that going for me.
Thanks. What variety do you have?
Well, of course, Guild Wars 2, because that's every Tuesday, you know. Last week I actually went back and did Ace Combat Assault Horizon. I did that on stream too. Despite how harshly I kind of tore into the game, I kind of wanted to visit it again, and the big reason is because 7 is expected to come out sometime this year. So the idea is to visit it again, talk about the things that in Assault Horizon that I liked, and the things that most Ace Combat fans enjoyed, but then the things that we didn't like the on-rails shooter from the side of a helicopter. No one liked that. I didn't want to play that game.
It's Ace Combat. You're supposed to be flying around.
Bingo. Yeah, I mean, at least there's some missions where you get to control like an Apache or a Black Hawk or whatnot, and you're flying around in a helicopter. But you're supposed to be flying jets. I want my freaking Raptor, and I want to fly around my Raptor. Like, that's what I want to do. But
give the people what they want.
Yes.
I could see that being kind of fun in like a multiplayer scenario where I don't know how to fly at all. Why don't you give me a gun that I can shoot from, and then have like a pilot or something? Like, that would make a lot of sense.
A co-pilot, I suppose, but you could look at something like War Thunder or World of Warplanes or something like that to play that type of game, which I think if you were to do that, that would make a lot of sense. I mean, that's the way the game style is supposed to work, whereas Ace Combat Assault Horizon also had like this story. And the thing you have to understand is, in previous Ace Combat games, looking at it, when you're doing these missions, there's a side story that's going along with the missions, like from the view of the civilians, like the impact of the war that's occurring and what's happening in their worlds. And then there's this hero pilot that's done so much for their nation or community because he's defending, or they're defending the very meaning of their way of life and such. And that's the way 3's been, 4 has been, 5, 0, 6, and they're all these fictional worlds, right? They're these Terra-esque type worlds, you know, fictional countries and battles and everything else. Assault Horizon, you are a U.S. pilot. You're involved at NATO camps. The bad guys are Russians.
It's an unpopular stance these days. Sorry, I couldn't help myself.
Imagine that the Russians are the bad guys. That hasn't been the thing for the past 70 years, I guess. I mean,
yeah. I once again with these tropes, I tell you.
That's kind of what it was, but it was great to revisit the game again and at least go through some of the flying missions and some of the other. The one thing about Ace Combat Assault Horizon that I really give props to is the selection of jets to choose from. It's probably one of the larger libraries of like model jets that you can fly around in, which is really cool. And I hope that carries over into 7.
Can you do a barrel roll though? That's the most important question.
You can do a barrel roll, and you can do it to avoid like being shot at.
I'm sold.
Yep.
Yeah. You've sold the game to me.
Perfect.
It is not as simple as tapping the right button twice, though. Unfortunately.
No.
Unfortunately.
Yeah, there's a little more work that goes into it. Beyond that, like I said, Guild Wars 2, been doing that, been working on another legendary staff and killing monsters in that, and getting very, very upset with ArenaNet nerfing the Elementalist again, the 3rd time. Like, we're not nerfed enough, but we're nerfed again, so, you know.
You need to start playing a different class so that they start nerfing that class. And then go back to your Elementalist. I mean, clearly, your skill has ArenaNet concern.
Yeah, that's exactly what it is. I should just go to my Necromancer and just run rampant with that. There shall be a plague everywhere on Tyria, and it's because of what ANET's done with my Elementalist. But I've been enjoying that and working through that. Although there were some issues before the stream started, to the point where one of the guys in our guild was talking about how the issues that they're having, like they might be under a DDoS attack right now. Not confirmed. It is not confirmed. I want to point that out. But the way that the game's behaving at the particular,
ArenaNet is?
Yeah, it's showing.
Right.
It's showing. The behaviors that we're seeing from like login servers and whatnot indicate that might be happening like right now. Unconfirmed.
How is the community taking all the drama? Is it not really affected by it, or are people defending the developer, or?
Honestly, like in game, there's very, very little. Right? There's very little of
People
it.
just want to play.
Yeah, they just want to play. The few times it's been brought up, they're just like, toxicity needs to be gone, so yay. There are other ways that were said, but overall, like, it's been siding with ANET really over it from in-game chat, which you know, I'm of the opinion that if someone's rude as hell to you, as far as like, especially developers, right? Developers get so much crap that if someone's a dipshit to you, I feel like you have full rights to open up and let loose on them. But if someone is genuinely going, this is a good read, I have a thought and feel free to correct me.
Yeah. That
is an indication of, I would like to have a conversation. I am willing to learn from you if I am wrong, but here's what I think. Mm-hmm. I honestly believe that that's a way a conversation's going. That is dialogue. That is back and forth. Now, if that same person continues to push their point, even though a counterpoint's been made, then it's a little more wishy-washy. But how that whole thing went down was an absolute mess. And
is that something you want to discuss, or is that way too political?
I mean, we can talk about it.
I mean, it's of interest to me, because I mean, like from what little I know of the situation, she flew off the handle. I'm not sure that she should have been fired for it, but it does seem like she was. I think the thing that frustrates me about it is that there is so much sexism in this industry, and there is so much difficulty faced, by minorities, that when people play the feminist card, when it's not warranted, which from my reading of the situation is what happened. Like, it was completely, she seemed to have flown off the handle at this. That it kind of, it makes it that much harder for everyone who's just trying to get on with it.
Yeah.
And who is really facing, discrimination, because by all accounts, ArenaNet's a pretty good place to work.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, an easy litmus test of it would be, is there a similar situation that has taken place where a similar action has resulted? Like, was there a man in the business who flew off the handle in a similar way?
Right.
If so, what did ArenaNet do?
Yeah.
And just, make it clear at that point.
So the precedent is Peter Freeze, who came to her defense pretty early on. Wasn't nearly as rude, but he sided with her, and I think he used the term man tears. But
right.
It was enough where he was also canned.
Yeah, I'm not sure how I feel about that.
Right.
I'm not sure. However, I agree that, I don't know specifically what Peter said, but the female developer, I don't know. I disagree with her, but I'm not sure that people should be fired for having spats on social media. I realize that it's a difficult line to draw, right? Because she does represent the company.
Yep.
But at the same time, and I guess that's a really important, and I guess as maybe legislation will mature as social media becomes increasingly integrated in our personal and work lives, and it's becoming increasingly difficult to separate an employee from who you are when you're off the clock.
Right. Which, that's one of the debates, right? Like, should this person have been just punished? Should they have been fired? That is up for a lot of debate, and there's no clear-cut answer on it, right? Mm-hmm. But the whole, this is my personal space, blah, blah, blah. When you say where you work, you are talking about your work project.
You're invoking your status as a developer and as a representative of this company. So you are kind of speaking for them at that point.
Bingo. Exactly. So you don't get to play this is my personal space. If you want a personal space, be anonymous. Don't have your name to it. Don't say which game you work for, and talk, in broader terms. Then if someone's a dick and you're a dick back, then you can say it's my private profile. There's no way to indicate that this is, representing this company, because it doesn't. But in this case, when you say that you're a developer for a company and you are a dick to that customer who was nice, let's not forget that this particular person that was lashed out at is an ArenaNet partner. Right?
Oh, okay. I didn't know that.
Yeah. So this person was an ArenaNet partner. And for those of you that are not familiar with what an ArenaNet partner is, they are content creators that work closely with ArenaNet to create content on YouTube, Twitch, and other platforms. They work with being an influencer on the development team. They have direct ways to provide feedback. They hold contests with the community. They get gems. They can do other things that other players don't get to do. This person, Durar, was one of those people.
Yeah.
Which makes it that much worse, because it's dude, this person was one of the select few that you felt was a good representation of your community, that creates content and boasts what Guild Wars is all about.
Would that have been obvious to the developer? Would she have known that?
It's hard to say. I didn't look at.
Not that it makes much difference anyway. I was just curious, really.
No, it does. I'd have to look at his profile again to tell you for sure, because some of those content creators, whether they are Warframe partners or ArenaNet partners or whatever, some of them will state that they are content creating partners or what have you, and I don't know if he did or not. So it's possible.
She was just in her replies, I suppose there's no reason necessarily why she could have known. But again, I guess it makes no difference. From what I understand, his comment was really quite reasonable.
Yeah. Yeah, he was basically saying that because the conversation came from that the main character for an MMO is relatively boring because you got to try to fit so many different personalities that would want to play the game into that character role, which is a point, right? And it's an interesting one. And hearing from a narration developer about how that works would be interesting. Mm-hmm. So then the response was, well, what about branching dialogue? I mean, that is probably the biggest praise that the Old Republic got as far as being an MMO, right? Mm-hmm. So that was the retort. And then it was today in, and it created that firestorm. And all it was is just that, what about this? Is this not an option? If it's not, why? Yeah. I would just like to know.
And then she played the sexist card.
Yep.
That's unfortunate. That frustrates me personally as someone who has dealt well. I mean, and I'm not a games developer. I'm just a woman who plays video games. And my earliest memories of playing Halo 2 online were dealing with actual real sexism. So when someone's just being perfectly reasonable and asking a question for you to play that card, it dilutes and diminishes the very real problems faced by people actually working in that industry, and that's something that really frustrates me. Yeah,
it really does. Furthermore, this is not the first time this has happened. It happened with her previous employer, the reasons for her letting go. She had some very unkind things to say after a certain other content creator had passed away, which I thought was incredibly shitty.
Wow.
So, no. I think that if suddenly this narration creator were to suddenly do something else in narration creation, a lot of people would not miss her. And I hate to say that because, like, the idea of praising women in the industry should definitely happen and it should be encouraged. But when someone is so toxic and actually creates more harm than good,
right?
Then you're just like,
well, then you're not remembered for the content that you did make and the incredible things you did do. You're only remembered for the anger.
Yeah.
That you brought out and how you affected the public and how they feel they can interact with the people who make a game. Yeah.
People are typically not good at separating the art from the artist.
No.
However, in an ideal world, that would be the case. We would be able to, listen to a message and enjoy it on its merits. But that's not the way the world works.
Which is too bad because that whole day, like prior to that, there was an AMA on Reddit where they were talking about the most recent content patch, and they're talking about this huge thing with Palawa Joko and what happened there in that story, and it was pretty fucking epic. Like that, like I totally did not see what happened coming at all, and it was done so well. And the writing for Palawa Joko was done so well, and now it's completely overshadowed by the shitstorm. Instead of shining light on this storytelling that was done really well, because so far the story in Living World Season 4 has been the strongest yet. It's been by far and away the strongest, and now it's completely overshadowed, and it just sucks because it's just like no, this is a good story. Pay attention to the story.
Yeah. But I guess sometimes any exposure is good exposure for these things. But I mean, is there anything good to be taken from the controversy, or do you think it's just all been negative?
The only other thing I can say that I say as a positive is in the Reddit, the subreddit, I have seen some posts where community members are reaching back out to the other women on the development team saying that we do appreciate you and we do appreciate what you do, so thank you. Mm-hmm. Which reinforces my whole thought that as far as an MMO is concerned, the Guild Wars community as a whole is one of the best. I won't say it's the best because I'm looking at you, Rambol, but and I know what.
No, No, I was actually going to say the opposite. I imagine my guess would be that it's a lot less toxic than the Swordtalk community.
There you go. No, I would say, like when I stream Guild Wars, and when I get new random people that pop in, they're always the most friendliest people that I chat with. Or when I did the charity stream a couple months ago, I was rated by a Guild Wars streamer, and totally random person, never saw him before. And some of his guys were just like, "Oh, you're doing open world. Would you want to do a raid?" I'm like, I don't know. I don't know the raids and whatnot. They're like, "Don't worry about it. We'll just take you and we'll teach you how to do it and everything."
That's so cool.
Who does that? Who else does that?
Yeah.
So
World of Warcraft would be like, I don't like this person. Okay.
This noob. What
Scrub.
a scrub.
Yeah.
Right?
Didn't pull 3 sets of mobs at once. I could have handled.
Yeah,
Slash
right.
kick.
Right. Oh my god, it's so true. And experiences like that, or even when I first started streaming, this channel was a Guild Wars channel, and then like doing jumping puzzles and whatnot was always positive experiences. And that's what I've seen in the subreddit, and seeing them circle the wagons around the rest of the development team is like, no, you guys are good people, and we appreciate you. So the people that's in that part of the community and are active in social networks, it's been pretty good. It makes me appreciate being part of the group, the community, and all.
That's awesome.
Yeah. That said, the only other game I've been playing is I went back and checked out Monster Prom.
Oh yeah, that's right.
So definitely a dating sim. And it certainly had a like one, but it was a lot of fun. The dialogue, the voice acting, the dialogue, it was a lot of fun. It was a lot more fun than what I was expecting. And then, of course, when I found the pact and who was the other character that hold on, I gotta find this character quick. When I heard the voices, I just instantly was like, haha, I know who that is. And I was very entertained by it. What were we gonna say, Dissa?
I was gonna say, the characters, is there a specific character that is your favorite at this point? Because I have not checked out the fake Buffy the Vampire Slayer. I should say the not Buffy the Vampire Slayer.
Maddie, the mermaid, Maddie, I think.
Oh, yeah.
I kind of enjoyed her. But after, like, I don't know how many times on stream I could not woo her to take her to prom, but the one time I played after I was done streaming, I'm like, screw it, I'm gonna give it one more go, and then I took her to prom. I was like, god damn it, that last game is all I needed. But
it's one more game. It's always one more game.
Yeah, right. The other was the Slayer. So the pack and the Slayer. When I heard the voices for those particular characters, I'm like, haha, I know who that is, and I was very entertained by that because I instantly recognized their voices. Just to put it out there too, the Slayer was Dodger and the pack was Jesse Cox. So.
Oh, they lend their voices to those roles?
Yes, they did.
Oh.
Yep, there's minor characters.
That's actually pretty cool.
Yep, they're minor characters that you interact with, like during lunch and stuff. But as soon as you hear their voices, you're just like, yep, I know those voices. Absolutely.
I'm pretty easy to please. That would be reason enough for me to give it a shot. And I usually avoid visual novels like like the plague.
Says the person who is the reason I ended up with Hatoful boyfriend.
Hey, you know what? No Rugrats.
I see.
I mean, it's a sim, but it's quite the farce of a sim, wouldn't you say?
Yeah. Yeah, like this game does not take itself serious in any way, shape, or form. Overall, I thought it was a lot of fun. If people are in any way a fan of dating sims, like, this one's worth a go, I would say. Or even if you're not, if you're just if you like the idea of a choice, Okay, this is the choose your own adventure again, right? But if you're at all a fan of that, this is it was definitely a fun game to check out. So yeah.
Better than Dream Daddy, because Dream Daddy's pretty quality.
I'm going to be perfectly honest with you. I didn't play Dream Daddy. I watched like Daddy Cash, Bunny play it, but I never did. It was look. The only reason I played Hotful was because I have a rule that if you donate the game to me while I'm streaming, I've got to play it. Which Rambol did to me.
Why I bought you that game? I think your other half egged me on to do it. I think. I could be making this up, but there was a reason that I got it. I'll have to ask
and not because it's a fantastic game, because clearly
no.
you are.
I think it was just trolling. I was just trolling you.
That's exactly what it was. Well, I had talked about it too, because I was like, who the hell would want to date pigeons anyway? I mean, shit. And of course,
maybe that was it.
And turned out, I had more fun with it than I thought, but of course that's because I was attempting to throw voices at it and give it its own voiceover and such.
I don't know. They're cute. They pay attention to you when you have food. I mean, I could see a reason behind that. I'm trying so hard.
Yes, you are. Yes,
Just
you
for you.
are.
Just for you.
But yeah, no, regardless. If it comes up in the sale, whatnot, check it out. So, that said, I think that's everything that we've been playing, right? Yeah?
Oh, yeah.
Cool. Shall we go ahead and jump into our topics for the evening?
Why, yes.
Sounds good to me.
Sounds like a plan.
The first thing that we see is something about a Yeti in a room.
So, remember a long time ago when Microsoft said, hey, we're going to make a console? And I don't know about you, my first thoughts were, this isn't going to work right. There are going to be some issues here. This is really weird.
Now, hold on. They had Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson at that announcement press conference, so clearly they already started off the right way.
Microsoft had The Rock at the Xbox announcement.
Yes.
I don't remember this. Have I blanked this out of my memory? Because I feel like I was hardcore into wrestling at the time. How do I not know that this was a thing? You have just blown my mind, guys. I don't know what to say.
If I had known that, I might have an Xbox now instead of a PS4. Not gonna lie.
Yeah, the original announcement, it was Bill Gates and Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson. There you go.
Dream team.
Yeah.
Can you imagine that tag team?
Yeah.
Hardy
Oh my God. Yeah, right. Could you imagine Bill Gates on the top rope? He's gonna drop an elbow. Ooh.
Definitely. I mean, I would put that in a beautiful comedy, like a comedy action movie, right there.
Who would direct?
Ooh. Good question.
Don't know.
Well, it depends. If you want like lens flares, you could just get Abrams.
Yeah, that's
Always
true.
works.
He's always the go-to.
Directed by Jackie Chan.
Oh, there you go.
Ooh.
There you go.
I like where this is going. So wait, would Dwayne Johnson play himself, or would we have to cast someone else to play The Rock?
He has to play
Oh
himself.
God, would he though?
I think so.
No. Okay. Better question. Would he play Dwayne Johnson or would he play The Rock?
Oh, that's getting pretty meta, isn't it? So are we ignoring the fact that? Oh wow. This is a rabbit hole.
Yeah. Are we doing the superstar or the person behind? I think I think this has to be like a random happenstance kind of movie. Like you have to find a situation where Bill Gates and Dwayne Johnson would be in the same spot. Maybe it is the Xbox conference. Maybe it's a timepiece.
It could start out as a buddy cop film, and then they take up wrestling. There we go.
It's the inspiration for The Rock to actually take wrestling up in the first place.
Wow. Or yeah, what about
it's a documentary, really?
Or you could just switch up the roles and Bill is a rock and Dwayne is Bill. See what happens. Could you imagine?
Oh goodness.
So anyway, remembering back to this press conference that occurred.
So it may not have been the most confidence-inspiring experience in my life, although it would now that I know that The Rock was there. Having, somebody who's making software, somebody who's not even making hardware, right? Saying, we're going to build a console. That was a concern. And yet we've seen the Xbox system flourish and become what it is today and stand in the big three. There is strong rumor that I'm seeing from multiple sources showing that Google is prepared to do the same thing, or at least researching doing the same thing.
Mm-hmm.
And I think Google has some real opportunity for it. Now, on one side of things, they've had failures of hardware options in the past. Google Glass. Really great concept. I think a lot of people were interested in seeing it go a lot further, and it just never kind of came to be. Hopefully audio is still good. Okay, good.
Yeah.
But yes, so Google Glass didn't really come to be. And that being said, there are a lot of games that are available already on Android phones. And they could just kind of appreciate their platform that they have there and the fact that they have essentially a stranglehold between them and Apple on anything that's going to be mobile. With the exception of Nintendo, they're trying to creep their way into that full scene. But even then, people are far more likely to have their phone on their hand versus their console. That's just the way of the world as it stands right now.
And if there is any company with the information and the metadata and the statistics about what people like, it's probably Google.
It's true.
Yeah.
They do have that information. That's going to help them out a ton. And then the real question is, why is it that a console is the right choice for them, given all of their history and all of the other pieces that they have already? It's also worth noting that with Android, people have tried making consoles off of the Android platform before. There was a whole generation, I think it was 5 or 6 years ago, where we saw a whole bunch of different companies kind of prototyping around the same time or slightly before Steambox was a thing.
Mm-hmm.
And none of that really came into the mainstream.
Wasn't there and the Ouya was Android based, so wasn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah. So
yeah, it was.
Is it just? Are we looking at Ouya 2.0 at this point, or what?
Based off of the information that we have, it sounds like it's Google working things out on its own, kind of like how they finally decided with their phones that they were going to. Manufacturers still use Android and things like that, but they have their own branding, they have their own platform. They're controlling some of the hardware on that side.
Right.
So it feels like it's more that sort of concept. Now the question is, how much of it is just based off of their mobile platform, or are they making the sort of development agreements and building the sort of opportunities with, major AAA titles to make something that is separate and console worthy? That's a big question.
I think I'm correct in saying that these rumors are very tentative and not directly sourced, right? 'Cause
it's a lot of rumor. It is healthily a rumor.
It's it's interesting to see that they talk about that. I mean, but are they looking to go a different way than Xbox did? Because remember the whole reason that Xbox ended up being what it was is because it was it's the Direct Xbox. Remember, that is why it is what it is. Is it?
I mean, clearly Google want to get into the space because they tried to acquire Twitch and failed. And what was the company? They basically either funded or like Niantic, and like, you know, you can imagine if they'd gotten into Pokemon Go. I bet they're kicking themselves that they missed that one.
Yeah, they had a lot of opportunity, and Niantic and Google were heavily involved in that first process together with Ingress. Like, Google had first development on it, and that happens very seldom in the mobile industry. Usually it's, hey, we're going to make everything for iPhones first, and then we'll figure out how to port it to everything else later. But no, Google was on top of it. So there's a good question on that. I think they have reason. I guess the question would be, what sort of need do we have in the console world that isn't being fulfilled by the big three?
Mm-hmm.
What's going to draw people to Google? What's like, and maybe that's the open question here. If you knew that there was a console that was coming out, and you had the opportunity to say, hey, here are the sorts of things that cause problems right now in the console world, how could you fix this? Like, what sort of things do you think Google could fix?
Well,
toxicity
maybe
in gaming? That's a good question. Could they? No, I don't know. This is complete supposition, but if you know, I think one of the biggest problems in online gaming at the moment is, and it's something that clearly Blizzard are trying to grapple with, right, with Overwatch and all the, you know, the system that they've just implemented for, you know, people are complaining about having to be polite to other people.
Yeah.
God forbid. I don't know, maybe. But in terms of the tech, I mean, like even Microsoft and Sony, they, you know, they're getting other companies to make the chips. It's AMD's making the graphic chips. It's not all in house. So like, what could they bring to the table other than money and you know, an enormous amount of metadata?
That, I suppose that's one of the things they would have, right? As far as like the other stuff that you had mentioned, like, you know, you have I'm just thinking back, like, I can't imagine. There was a comment in the chat talking about how even if, like, say Ouya came out now, it would do better than it did previously, and there's a belief that there'd be more support, which is interesting to consider, right? But if it's anything like a Chromebook, I would see it as an inexpensive solution for trying to create a console gaming experience in the living room, which I can't see that. Because Nintendo tried that, and it worked for a little while, but if you look at the Switch now, like the most recent thing, they put more horsepower under their hood now, and now they're looking at different things instead of just like, oh, it's not the graphics that matter, the inexpensiveness, it's something else. Because
and truth be told, it could be done in some areas, but like you think about even material like PlayStation Now, it requires a fast internet connection in order to get access to all of that hardware. And there are so many places in America that don't have that situation in the United States. Like it's not reliable in our environment. You could put it into smaller environments, like only places that have Google Fiber can do this.
Mm-hmm.
Or something like that. But I mean, that's already a very niche area to begin with. And Google's already said, hey, we know how difficult it is to expand on this network now. We're not doing it anymore.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I don't think outsourcing like hardware that way is going to be successful for them.
Yeah. No, I agree with you. Like, I don't live too far from a very major city in England, and I've been, you know, spending about 6 months without fiber broadband. So it's not a situation that's unique to the US. I mean, you know, and outside of the Nordic countries and, you know, parts of Asia, for many people it's a real luxury. And I don't think, and then you got to factor in latency.
Yeah.
As well, like how do you deal with it? I mean, that's still a problem with online games, especially highly competitive ones. I don't quite see how that's a hurdle that can be overcome just yet. And there are some fundamental laws of physics involved. unless you've got a server down, you know, in every major city, and people have, you know, got like sub 10 millisecond ping. I don't see how that's gonna how that's going to work out.
Maybe that's something that Google can solve.
Maybe. But there's a lot of obstacles to Google doing that, given the political environment right now.
That's for sure.
That's one. Two, with Google possibly fixing that, like, how would they fix that? I mean, one of the things they tried to do to fix that was creating Google Fiber, and they're trying to roll that out. And then what happened there? A lot of the ISPs gained up against them in court and blocked their rollout of fiber, because all of a sudden that meant that these ISPs had to be competitive. God forbid that they actually had to do that. So what other solutions do they have? If some reason my mind just went to, like, all these Yetis would become a part of a sub network, and the whole thing combined is this Skynet. I don't know.
Sooner or later.
Oh yeah. Yeah. I mean, Google could very well be the source of that. I mean, all things considered, I think they're the most likely culprit. So
either going to be Amazon or Google, and my money's on Google too.
They're the reason for the Terminators. Oh goodness.
Yeah.
I don't know. I guess
after the phone call to make appointments completely automated, like they're on the way.
Yeah.
That was unsettling.
Yeah, it was.
Really was.
Yes, it was. I completely
Hitting a little
agree.
bit of uncanny valley there.
How do you know someone's real? Did they get catty with you? That's a good indication that they're real for now.
Especially out here, that'll work. Like, if that automated system is not incredibly sarcastic, no, this machine.
That's the day. Oh boy. Well, I guess we're gonna have to keep an eye on Google announcements about Yeti and what they do and whatnot. I won't completely shut it down. I think having living room machines is always interesting, but I guess if you look at, like, the Steam Link and other things, I'm cautiously optimistic about any results that might come from it.
Yeah, if they treat it more like a PC console and have some of the options and maybe resolve some of the issues that Steam had as they launch through their Steam boxes and things like that, there's some opportunity there that I think that they could develop. I think it fits more of the PC market than it does the console market at that point, but that could also be viable. And the fact is, there are a lot of services that Google already offers that having a box would be very convenient for. So they can kind of make it work that way, I think, if they're looking for, like, an entire, like, family entertainment console.
Fair enough.
But we'll see what happens.
Yeah. Talking about things that are going well and interesting as far as competitive market, it's not in our template, guys, so I'm going to completely throw you for a loop, but
Whoa!
I know.
Going off the rails.
GameStop for sale. Anyone?
Oh my gosh, I saw the moment that came out. There were, I think, probably 400 replies after like the main tweet that said, you know, I'd be happy to buy it. It's gonna be $4.79, or I can give you like $7 in cash value.
I was just thinking the same thing. Yep. The only reason I find it interesting and want to bring it up is because Rambol, with your experience, you probably saw a little bit of that with Game over in the UK, right? Didn't Game go on sale and go through that whole process themselves?
I don't even. Do you know what? It's been so long since I actually stepped foot into like a brick and mortar place and bought a game. I don't even know if they actually still exist as a company. Like they're just, to me, they're completely irrelevant. Like it's like I'm not the first person to make this analogy, but they're just the Blockbuster of video games. It's like a defunct kind of. And I have no love for them because of their sort of complicity with publishers in the sort of day one DLC and 50 different tiers of versions of the game with different pre-order bonuses to buy. Yeah. How are they relevant anymore? Unless, like me, you were dealing with not broadband for a very long time, I suppose. Maybe I'm sort of out of maybe I'm maybe I'm out of touch here, but the secondhand game market doesn't seem to be.
I'm trying to think of the last game I bought at a brick and mortar. It might have been Pokemon Sun, maybe, and that's only because I want to put points on my reward card. You know.
Yeah.
But beyond that,
they're finding ways to retain you. Well,
look, the reason that we've gone to GameStop here has been to get like gem cards for Guild Wars or Steam cards for Crafty, or because of the fact that they own ThinkGeek.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Like they have other nerdy stuff there, which is like, all right, what weird shit do you have in stock now? Is it anything that interests me that I'm willing to fling money at?
I think I only ever go to brick and mortar. Sorry, go ahead.
Oh, I was gonna say more than a couple of times I have. Like I'll freely admit, like the fact that they're getting into merchandising is a good move for them. They know that they need to diversify. That makes sense.
Yes.
What I don't get is they have an awesome opportunity to diversify and become more like the reason why people go to midnight launches, the reason that people spend time in game shops now is not to actually get their game as much as it is to communicate about video games. And if they can find a way to hit that market, do something more like an internet cafe, have that option. Like they have so many different ways that they could diversify, and they haven't touched that yet. I don't know. It makes sense that they're on. Is that they haven't been able to roll with the times as well as they really need to.
Yeah, and then like to the chat's point too, with as far as other things that the brick and mortar stores actually create is look at what happens with Nintendo and their price cutting, because of brick and mortar they won't price cut as much, and that's an interesting point. And I've heard that before. I think diversifying was the way to go. I think there's more that they could do. Honestly, if Game or GameStop want to diversify, you know what's a great way to do that? Although I'm going to hate saying this because of what it does to other businesses I really appreciate. They should talk to board game creators.
Yeah.
Because let's face it, they're a game shop, right? And they focus just on video games. There's a huge market in board games. Look at... you could look at what the heck's the big one starts with N. Help me out, guys.
I'm trying to think of what you're talking about because I don't know of any big board game like boxes. Even the ones that I'm familiar with have all been kind of regional options. If they're not
there is a chain in the UK, but the name eludes me, and they do things like Warhammer and tabletop stuff.
I was thinking Hasbro. That's what I was thinking it was. So talk to Hasbro, but then they can also talk to other game creators, like, say, Fantasy Flight Games, which make a lot of things like, say, Star Wars X-Wing or Armada or, Games Workshop's another one. Yeah, that's a good point. Talk to these other ones and put a board game selection in there. The reason that really hurts to say is because, like, we have comic book shops, at least in my area, that sells games as well. And I know that would impact them a lot. But if GameStop really wanted to diversify...
Games Workshop.
Yeah.
Do you have... Is that right in the US? I don't know.
It might be. I don't know. I have to look that up. But look, regardless, I think that's the best way to go. Like, you can sell like the Pokemon coffee mug and geeky T-shirts, but how many of those are you going to sell versus how many possible board games and card games could you sell?
And sell me the time to play them with the people around. Give me a cafe while I'm sitting over here, and I will be buying more of your games because I'm sitting here for hours, and this guy has a game over here that I haven't played before. This is super cool. There's so much opportunity there that they don't know how to deal with. I think it's really telling. So I went to downtown Boston, and went into a GameStop over there recently, and the entire time that I'm there, I see the people who are working in this major location, like high visibility location, literally sitting on the counters. Like, there isn't conversation, there isn't communication, there isn't a reason to be there other than the product. And what you see in so many businesses is that the reason to be there isn't just the product.
Well, and that's
GameStop doesn't figure that out. GameStop doesn't see a reason for extra value other than like the promotional points.
Well, and see, that's just it. Like, that's how you have to make a brick and mortar more relevant, because you're not going to do it with just the stock that you have there anymore. Because let's face it, you're going to buy it online. You're going to get it cheaper because you have a middleman that you get to cut out.
I think we have to think about what like a brick and mortar store can offer, or like having a centralized space. And it just occurred to me, Game last year in my town opened. Basically, it's a big. It's a huge internet cafe, and you can book out a computer, and it's pretty highly spec'd, and you can play games competitively, and there's VR stuff there. Like that is what they can offer, because like most people don't have room for a VR set, something like that. Or maybe their friends are out of town or whatever, and I think they can still offer people like us something of interest, but it's not what they're trying to offer us right now. And unless they innovate and spend the money on that, then they're gonna go the way of the dodo.
Yeah, and I suspect that is very likely to be the case in a very, very near future. So, it's funny, going back to this now, companies that are doing well, how is Nintendo doing?
So, just recently read an article talking about Nintendo stock going down in this year. And mind you, last year was a fantastic year for Nintendo, right?
Yep.
You think about it, so many great launches, new console launch, and a console launch with beautiful, beautiful games going on top of it. The fact is, I think they ended up increasing their stock like double what it was for like the Wii U launch. And they've done a great job. And now that the stock market's starting to stabilize or normalize on them and say, I'm not sure about this. The question is this a bad thing? How bad of a thing is it really? Like, where is Nintendo in the long run? How concerned should we be? Especially given that Nintendo has kind of put all of its eggs in one basket with the Switch. It is now their portable and their console at home. So, a couple of things have been going on lately that have come. We talked a little bit about it during our E3, our stream, just reviewing what games came out and really what games didn't. We didn't hear much about.
See, I felt like if stock was going to drop on Nintendo, it would have been after they're showing that E3, because I mean it was what?
Pretty weak, wasn't it?
Yeah. It was smash, smash, smash. Really, that's all you heard about. Whereas, I mean, there's a lot of things that the console that they have out now currently does that's really well, and the fact that the Switch capitalizes on the fact that it's a mobile gaming device as well as a home gaming device really should play to their strong suit, because their mobile game selection, as far as like what they had previously in like the DS and 3DS, was the absolute top, the best that you could have in that market, right? And they should have capitalized on that more with the Switch. Like, where's their Pokemon game?
It's coming.
When?
Trademark.
When? Because let's face it, that is, once they announce that, people are going to be all over that.
Yeah. So true story and total non sequitur here. Apparently, Germany has banned the use of "coming soon" in presentations of games.
What?
Yeah.
You have to give a fixed date.
I'm not sure how much detail there needs to be, if it's a fixed date or like if it's a quarter, or there has to be some justification as to the timing that they've selected. But I just heard about that, which is interesting.
Well, trust the Germans.
But yeah, a lot of stuff that's coming soon, it makes a speculator speculate, right?
Yeah.
And not to the advantage of Nintendo, probably.
Well, not just Nintendo, but a lot of those Japanese publishing houses. I mean, circling back now to what I was talking about with Ace Combat, that was supposed to come out 3 years ago. 3 years ago, and now they're saying 2018, but there's still no hard date. So there's no guarantee that's going to come out. But that's Namco Bandai. So, you know, it's them. Sony's not exactly the best at it either. Squeenix.
When's Kingdom Hearts 3 coming out again? What?
Yeah, I was just gonna say Squeenix. Yeah. Sega games are no better either. Like, yeah, guys, it's coming. We don't know when. It'll be here someday. That's not an answer. So it's really interesting to see Germany do that.
Yeah, they need some big stuff. Nintendo needs some big stuff on a very clear timeline. And hopefully Germany's giving them a little prod in the right direction on that.
Yeah.
Be like, if you give us the time frame, then it'll be easier for everybody to know what's going on, which is awesome.
Give us a date for Pokemon. Do it now.
I think the other big problem that they've got going on is Nintendo said that they were going to have a subscriber service for online play at launch. That was supposed to be done, December of last year. It isn't. And we're still sitting in a weird spot. Like, I don't know when they're going to convert this over, how they're going to convert this over, what sort of subscriber services that they're going to offer. And the fact is, subscriber-based services are a huge money-making asset and is going to have investors interested in what's going on. The delay is starting to stale.
Because they're not making much money on the hardware, so...
No, because you're right. The hardware is just a way for them to push the thing that actually does make them the money, right? We're going to take a hit on this and gain it on the back end by the software that we launch for it, and that's always been the thing. And that's why we saw console exclusives as long as we did.
Am I correct in thinking that they've gated off cloud saves behind some kind of paywall, the Nintendo? Because for the longest time, your game saves were specifically on the console, right?
Yeah. To my best knowledge, they still are.
Are they? Really? I know a couple of people who own a Switch who've been complaining about that, but I wasn't sure on the details because I don't own one myself.
I was gonna say I don't think I've had that issue with my Switch, so.
With the exception of a couple of things that are like specifically online play, I imagine like Splatoon levels and things for your profile probably stay along. But that's not like cloud saving. That's just material that that they hold for multiplayer purposes.
Right.
I think that's a different creature. Not to mention like the multiplayer services that are out there, and maybe this is just a matter of not having the subscribing services, are in a tough spot too. So recently, somebody, presumably it's one of those decided to review Splatoon 2 and how their matchmaking system works, and found some sort of exploit. I don't know how. Thankfully, there aren't a lot of details. And he made 4 different profiles that became the #1 profiles in all of the competitive matchmaking services. To which he used this opportunity to name them "Please Use Anti-Cheat."
That's great.
Wow.
Nintendo has since banned that account and prevented that entire Switch from ever being able to go online. So that poor soul will have to buy a second Switch to continue to enjoy games. And the best part is the hacker, they stated that they just want to see the competitive opportunity in Splatoon continue to do well.
Sure.
And if there are exploits that are going to cause problems to that and are going to cause people to leave Splatoon, they should be handled.
Yeah.
That's the very definition of white hat hacking right there. So like, I don't understand why. I mean, like, I guess I understand in principle maybe they have to ban him for technically exploiting, but you know, you think that he was almost doing you a favor, right? Unless they knew about it already, and it's not worth. Who knows? It's not worth it to them to like fix the problem.
Which is crazy. But you said exactly what I was thinking. I was thinking the exact same thing. I'm like, isn't that the very definition of white hat hacking? Like, that's exactly what that was. Is like, thanks, asshole, and they just smacked them down. It's hopefully there's more that going on in the back end that we don't actually see, and they are addressing it. But
well, yeah, if they don't, then the answer is clear. Like, that news article is everywhere. Hackers now know, yeah, you can abuse the system in Splatoon 2 and cause some of the same challenges that the original Splatoon had. And apparently, they were significant on the multiplayer end. I didn't have a Wii U, so I never really experienced it. I still know Splatoon was probably one of the most popular games of the Wii U.
Yeah.
And Nintendo may decide as a result of that that it doesn't matter that much, which would be unfortunate for building a growing online community, which Nintendo has pledged interest in doing, has pledged our money potentially in doing. So they need to find a way to make it valuable for us to get those online services once it is a paid service.
Yeah. Who knows if they figured it out? I mean, Nintendo's also the same company that will act very aggressively go after free advertisement in the way of Let's Plays. So, I mean, I as it was pointed out, and I agree, like, maybe they're going to put... What I think they're going to do is they're going to probably just go, la, 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 la. And that's all we can expect from Nintendo in that regard. And maybe that is actually a reason for that stock to go down then, right? If that's all they're going to do. They can't ignore problems. If you ignore problems long enough, it's going to lead to bigger ones. Like, say, a typo.
I like that.
It's amazing. It's amazing how much a little typo can do.
That's probably one of my best segues yet. A typo, like in the word tether. Now, have you guys been able to read up on what exactly happened?
Oh no, please tell us.
Okay, so if you've watched this podcast or watched me in general or what have you, it is no secret that I have no problem shitting on aliens, colonial marines. I have no problems doing this, no quorum doing this at all. I can totally do this, and I'm okay with it. Turns out that the reason the xenomorphs were so fucking stupid was there was a typo in the AI code, in the AI source code for the xenomorphs. It was a typo. It turns out in the code that would tether the xenomorphs to the environment they were in, tether was spelled with an extra A. There is no A in tether. And because of that A, the xenomorphs weren't tied into the environments that they were in, so there's like, they were running blind. So it's literally that. They're running blind. They were running into walls and didn't know what to do because they had no idea where they were going. It was discovered by a modder named James Dickinson 963. He was working on a mod, and he went into the source code. It was an INI code for the AI.
Yeah.
And there it was. Tether. And so
I do like some tether.
Yeah, right. So he took the A out of that typo, and all of a sudden, the xenomorphs weren't just running down the wall or running down the hall at you. Like, they used their environment to try to flank you and actually get you, and they became much more intelligent than they had previously. Now, that doesn't fix the shitty storytelling that doesn't fix your shitty companion or the graphics, but that is one less problem. But that it brings up an interesting point, right? It makes you wonder if there was any QA that was done to this game, like any at all, or review.
Yeah.
The amount of money that went into the development of it, how? Like, it really does beg us. I'm flabbergasted.
Yeah.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. I have to wonder, especially companion double checked now that they found the teether misspell to see if maybe there are some other typos that are over here. Like,
I don't...
help is HELLP or something.
Because I'm not a programmer, but you'd think there would be some kind of debugging software that could go through and identify when, something's trying to call something that doesn't exist. You would think that...
Oh, yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah, it should come back with an error. Like, if it's trying to... If it should. Like, if there's supposed to be a pull from somewhere and it's not pulling, then it'll come back with the errors at this line. And then you're supposed to go back to that line going, what's wrong here? I mean...
It's Microsoft Word. It's like Microsoft Word from like Windows 95. That's all you need, really.
Kind of. I'm not going to pretend to begin to know a lot about programming, but I mean, I've written a program before in PHP, and every single time I had an error, it would, when I ran the code, every time there was an issue, it would tell me which line it was on. And the software writing program I was using had like 1, 2, 3, all the way down to lines, 17,752 or whatever, right? But it would tell me which line the error was on, why I couldn't pull from part of the code, and then you could go, oh, there was an A in tether. Did that not happen?
Still worked, so it may not have been returning an error.
And even if it, for some reason, in principle, it weren't possible, they were building the game, they knew the behavior that they were expecting from them, and it should have been obvious that they weren't getting that behavior, and then surely someone would have been like, well, okay, well, what's the troubleshooting process to go through to figure out where the problem lies, and then you'd think it would be they'd have figured it out.
Instead, some teams said, it's okay, it's good enough.
I think that's kind of what they got at, because how many years was ACM in development? I felt like, 7 years? Something like that. At that point, it could have been just a case of where they're just like, let's get this freaking thing out of here. And
I wonder if it was a case of like a revolving door of developers. So maybe someone starts working on it, they get handed over.
Well, sure.
That's
the
true.
Job and stuff can get missed that way. With all the controversy
that Aliens had in the beginning, like, I could imagine a lot of people online building the code being thrown out because, hey, we need to punish somebody for what's going on here.
Well, people just leaving 7 years is a long time.
That's true.
It really is. I mean, but...
especially in software.
Because how many developers did it go at the end? It ended up going through Timegate Studios, which that cleaned out that company because it was subcontracted out to them to do. And it's too bad because they did decent games. I know that Section 8, that Timegate Studios could make a decent game because of games like Section 8 and Section 8 Prejudice. Like, those were fun games, and they worked really well. Even their AI worked relatively well considering the age of the game at this point, but yeah, I mean, it was Gearbox, it was Timegate Studios, it was it Sega that did Alien Colonial Marines at one point too? So it switched a lot of hands. Let's just see here.
The Village Bicycle of the games industry.
Yeah, right. Of course, that's a stain that it's like. So the lead designer on it was Randy Pitchford. Do you think he would go back and want to have that fixed at some point? Oh, here we go. Here's the list. We got Gearbox Software, Timegate Studios. Is that Demerge Studios? Nerve Software and Check 6 Games, all involved in the development of that game. So it switched hands a lot. Maybe it was missed because of that, but at the same time, it also brings up the question, well, if it was in that many hands and they know what, like, to Rambol's point, they know what they were expecting the behavior to be, and it didn't do it, wouldn't someone go, WTF, why does this not work as intended?
Yeah. Somebody had to choose that. Somebody had to choose the result that they got out of it. So at the end of the day, it's not even negligence. Negligence would be like, hey, this error.
Yeah.
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 Well, I mean, we continue to be disappointed. Like, I thought the hole could not be drilled further down, but
the only good thing that seems to come out of ACM is our guest from 2 weeks ago actively plays ACM, and he talks about how good the community is there. So
well, clearly so. I mean, they're the people who discovered.
Yeah, right. But he's talked about how they're friendly and helpful and want to help other people out that join in. And they're like, oh, you want to enjoy this? Here, let's enjoy it together. So
how big is that community? It's got to be pretty small.
It can't be that large. I can't imagine it's got that large of a player base, but it was spoken of rather positively. So
got to be pretty dedicated to put up with that dumpster fire.
Although I suspect all of them are enjoying a brand new experience in the game that they're enjoying. So I guess there's that.
Well worth it for them.
Yeah,
well worth it.
Yeah, right. Speaking of developers and changing of things, our special guest topic of the evening, Rambol, was involving Bioware.
Yeah, speaking of revolving doors, James Olin has just left, and he's been heavily involved with the development of Anthem, because I mean, Bioware seems to be all hands on deck from that. Like, as someone who, pretty much exclusively plays Star Wars, I've seen the effects of that. Hands have been diverted and development on slowed. But yeah, I mean, and he's not the first in the last couple of years. I'm trying to think of, I think Drukar, I'm going to butcher his name, Karpashin, and so many others, like long veterans of who've been working with Bioware for, some of them 20 years. They just seem to be leaving. And I know there were a couple of big names that left after the Mass Effect Andromeda debacle, and it really doesn't give me much confidence that Anthem is going to be what they're trying to convince us that it's going to be. But yeah, I just
because it was the former head. Sorry, I thought I had the name. So yeah, because there was is it Jason?
James Olin is the guy who just left.
Yeah. No, James is the one that just left. Right.
Yeah.
But there was other ones earlier this year that did too.
Drew Karpashin is one that's coming to mind, and I know there was a guy who left and then returned after having left. But yeah, there's been a string of them. Like four or five big names come to mind.
Aaron Flynn, that was the other one.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So, what do you suppose is causing this changing of the guard at BioWare?
EA. I mean, there's no. It's. I mean, it's pretty obvious to me. I mean, BioWare. The soul's being sucked out of it. No wonder these. I mean, I guess maybe part of it is a function of they've been, developing games for 20 plus years. Some of these guys, and maybe they just want to move on. So I'm sure that's a function of it. But you don't leave this far into the development of a huge game that's really probably going to make or break think that's that. I'd be if it doesn't go well, I think there's a very real risk that EA could can it, because EA has no sentimentality. They don't, clearly.
No.
And you wouldn't leave if you didn't think you were on a sinking ship when you were this close to finishing the product. At least,
Well, and they had gameplay footage of it at E3, so it
really
clearly
doesn't look that impressive to me.
No,
I mean, it looks
no,
amazing,
it doesn't.
but there's not much content.
That's just, yeah. No, I completely agree with that too. It really doesn't look like anything that's like the.
And it doesn't look like a Bioware game.
No.
And maybe that's a big part of it, because I think he's saying that he wants to leave to work on a D&D project, like making stories for that, and I mean that and he was like I think he was either the creative lead or the lead developer on like Baldur's Gate and Neverwinter Nights and all these classic Bioware story-driven games. And if you're Anthem just it doesn't look like any of them. And they've been quite frank about that they're sort of reining in the sort of classic the story focus and the character focus on it. So
which you're right, that he was talking about going out and working on that D&D thing, which is interesting because isn't that kind of what BioWare started in on too, was D&D based games.
Yeah, it sounds more and more like, based off of what you're saying, that it's a creative disagreement.
I think that's a fair assessment. I mean, it's obviously just a guess, and I doubt any of these people are gonna openly be bashing EA too much, but I don't know anyone. I don't know anyone who has a good thing to say about EA.
To make the statement of, hey, I'm going to do this other thing, which everybody else is concluding is far more in line with what we have done in the past. It's whatever changes are going on. And you have to think, especially for creative development, like that storyline, those are things that whatever the mechanics of a game are, you can still work around. Yeah, I don't know. It's about as close as you can say I don't like the direction it's going without saying that out loud. Yeah.
It makes you wonder, because how many other things have we wondered or worried about in regards to EA? Like it's been long determined by a lot of gamers that EA does not care about making good quality games anymore. They just don't.
It's the Walmart of games publishers.
That is very, they really are. Low prices, right?
Care about their employees a lot.
Because we saw, whether it was SimCity or we saw what happened with the most recent Mass Effect or whatnot, like there's answers to, we'll make this, but then the quality that went into it, that Maxis did, that BioWare did, just wasn't the same. And I felt like that hurts. It makes me worry about other things like Ninja Theory and the other developers that were announced to have been purchased by EA last month.
Wasn't that Microsoft that snapped Ninja Theory up?
Wasn't it? I thought it was. Maybe it was Microsoft.
Fact check time.
Yep, I'm gonna fact check myself. Maybe I'm wrong.
Because you mean the Hellblade developers, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure it was Microsoft. But
okay, yes, I stand corrected. You're right.
Huge, there are a minority of these huge publishers who are just swallowing these talented, these young studios up and subsuming them really until they've, until there's nothing left of them.
Yeah, I'm just trying to think what other ones, because EA announced some of the company or like the studios that they have bought, right? Because I felt like they just did too. Regardless, like as EA like consumes these small studios, I feel like they just lose their personality and their individuality of their creativeness, and it's just, it becomes a shell, and it feels.
It's the nature of the beast.
It feels bad. I feel bad for developers that are creative, like what we saw, seeing people like James leave and other previous like lead development folks leave, and it's not just them, right? There's other large publishers that they're seeing some of their big creative heavy hitters leave in the last few years.
This is the problem. If you are beholden to shareholders,
Yeah.
and your ultimate motive is profit making and not making great stories, not making great art, making great games. If that's secondary to turning a profit, this is inevitable.
Mm-hmm. What I'm hoping that doesn't lead to is I'm hoping that doesn't lead to what we saw in the early 80s. Because that's kind of what led to that.
Mm-hmm.
Is how fast can we turn stuff back out? How fast can we shovel it out? And it led to a crash.
And then you have E.T.
Yeah, then you have E.T.
I don't know, I'm hopeful. I mean, there's so many great
E.T.?
indie developers.
Yeah. Do you want E.T.? Because this is how we get E.T.
Had to put a meme in there, didn't you?
Oh, absolutely.
Oh, goodness. So, who does Bioware have left that was from their original days? Do we know?
The current head, I'm trying to remember his name, begins with C. But he left, I think, shortly before or shortly after Andromeda came out, and then did come back to take over the ship, I think. But I mean, yeah, I don't know. It seems like a lot of their original talent is leaving.
Which, I mean, after Anthem, what comes next? Is it going to be a BioWare game? Will it be Dragon Age? Will it be an actual Dragon Age game? Will it be? I don't think we'll see another Mass Effect game again.
Yeah. I am ready for Dragon Age in my D&D now. I mean, if that's a transition over to Dungeons and Dragons, I think I'm alright with the tabletop campaign that way.
Maybe, I don't know. Maybe you just have to watch some small Dragon Age MMO. Sorry, I'm just looking at chat. I don't like reading a lot from chat during the show, but yeah, maybe that's something. I don't know.
You know what? We could totally enjoy that Dragon Age tabletop game in our GameStop when they convert over to board games.
There we go.
Yes.
It all comes together. It just makes sense.
We've come full circle.
We have. We really have. Oh, goodness. Let me also correct myself. I don't like calling out, like, reading everything out loud from chat. I do enjoy reading the chat and what people have to say. I just don't like regurgitating everything. I like to try to have my own original thought.
Sorry, Zen's also English. He's very sarcastic.
Oh.
Yeah.
Well, that's a certain level of skill that I guess just that as a colonial I just don't have. I guess I don't know.
Especially in text form, it can be real.
Which is crazy. I
challenge.
had a Snark Arts shirt on yesterday. University of Snark Arts. Look, anyway, I guess in short, going back to our topic, our special topic is it'd be interesting to see if a lot of these people that leave, if they like in James's case, he's leaving game development for a while, but I would like to see some of these people continue to do stuff in small studios, and maybe we'll see some of that creativeness and individuality, and just in a new name.
Yeah,
I mean, that's what happened with Obsidian, right?
Yeah.
To
Obsidian.
Oh,
splintered
yeah.
off from BioWare, and I mean, I would argue as that Knights of the Old Republic 2 was better than the first one, and they've also made some great games since.
That's fair. Maybe we can hope. Maybe we can hope for more of that.
Work Kojima.
Oh, poor Kojima. That's I feel like that could be a whole nother topic for a show, but
I mean,
Still
now that
traumatized by
Kojima's
that trailer.
away, he is doing exactly what he wants. Say what you will, he gets to do what he wants, and he is definitely doing what he wants. Because I don't think anybody would be greenlighting what he's doing if he wasn't on his own studio.
This is true. I just like if you read up on everything involving with that, that's what I'm saying. Like that's a whole nother topic. Like that is a long, deep one to dive into.
It's true.
But you need these sort of avant-garde characters. You need these crazy people in the game industry in order to to innovate and do stuff. Because if everything's done by committee, if everything is if you're beholden to shareholders, then we've seen what happens. It's just another Call of Duty every year.
Yeah.
It's bland.
It's
bland and vaguely profitable.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So Madden. It's Madden
there's
with
no
one new
breakthroughs.
feature. Huh?
But there are no breakthroughs. There is no change. There's nothing exciting or interesting yet.
Yeah.
And it'll slowly wear away.
Yeah. By letting the creative people flow, we get Norman Reedus delivering babies by walking across the world. I mean, so true. That is a great thing to
How
go
could
on.
we live without that?
Right.
How could we live without that?
I don't know. I want to see more Kojimas and Olens and Metzens do their own thing on their own, and maybe we'll see some new stuff that way. That's I think everything that we had for the show tonight. But before we go, this is kind of where we get to sell out and plug our channels and stuff and what we do. So, Dizzo, why don't we start with you? What do you got coming up and on your channel?
That's absolutely perfect because I am actually going to be workouting because I have a job that's separate from hanging out with y'all here, which is unfortunate but awesome. I'm glad I have work. So I'm going to be out all of next week. I will probably be back streaming on Tuesday of next week.
Okay.
And until then, since I've got a lot of time offline to enjoy, for a vague moment I thought about taking the PS4 and streaming off of that, but I will take all of that experience from Octopath and turn it into a little bit of a walkthrough.
Okay. Cool.
Give me something to do on that downtime. So if you are checking out Octopath, if you on it, expect some cool content. I have no idea how I'm going to produce this content and give it to people, but needless to say, you will find out about it if you are hanging out on my Discord or checking me out on Twitter. I am at Dizzy on Twitter. And of course, chatting in here because I stop on by the stream pretty regularly.
That he does. Rambol, what do you got coming up on the channel in the next few weeks?
I'm probably going to be streaming some SWOTOR. It's pretty much all I do. I've got a couple of people nagging me to play Doki Doki Literature Club. So I might give the people what they want and do that. But yeah, I'm trying to get on a bit of an even schedule and stream 3 times a week. But yeah, I'm working on a couple of guides and things at the moment. There's a big content patch out coming it's on the public test server for SWOTOR right now. So there's all kinds of changes coming up. So I'll be revising a few of my older guides, and I got a couple of things in the works at the moment. So I keep my website's ramble.net. You can pretty much find out all my links to my social and stuff are there, and I'm on Twitter at ramblenet. So just SWOTOR. That's what I do. I'm a one trick.
You're a one-trick pony. No. All right, and I guess for myself then, I will be doing more Guild Wars Tuesday, right? That's the thing. I'll be doing that, open world bosses and how to do them properly in proper etiquette. Like if you die, waypoint back, please. I continue to teach that lesson because that's important. We might do some other stuff too, maybe, but usually it's open world. Safe bet. I've thought about diving into a story-based type game, but I don't know about that necessarily this coming week. So Wednesday's still in the air. It could be anything. And I'm also trying to get some feels about another possible like reoccurring thing to do.
So when you say anything, could it be like that recent phenomenon of people eating while on stream for the express purpose of eating? There's a name for that. I should know that name off the top of my head, and I don't.
Social eating?
Social eating?
No, there's a term for it.
Yes.
Is there?
Social
It's like
eating.
ASMR, but for food.
Yeah, it's one word. It's even better.
Oh lordy. Not necessarily that. When I say anything, I do mean any games. Who knows? It could be Euro Truck Simulator. I could go get some ciders and just go ship shit. Because I've been known to do that too. I don't know.
Hashtag don't drink and drive.
Right.
It's an actual lesson of this is why you don't drink and drive.
Yeah, I'm literally that lesson. But yeah, on the social networks, Miss Michelle Jean on Twitter, Miss Michelle Jean on Instagram. You're already on my Twitch channel, so we're there. Proper shout outs to the fine folks here for those in chat, so you can actually find right. So I'll let that be a thing for you there. And yeah, we'll figure it out. As for tonight, for Rambol and for Dizza, my name is Miss Michelle Jean. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for watching, and we will all catch you next time. Ta-ta.
I think we get to say stuff now. If they can hear it, it's fine. They've earned it.